Welcome everyone to KLTV Public Eye. I'm Andrew Wilson from Same Skies, the citizen-led regional democracy network and think tank for West Yorkshire. And today I'm talking to Cllr Cooper, who is the Green Party's candidate to be the first ever West Yorkshire Mayor. Welcome Andrew, and thank you for coming.
It's great to be here.
I thought it'd be interesting to start by asking you a little bit about your personal and political journey. So how did you come to be standing to be Mayor?
Well, I've been a councillor for 21 years now, and when I look back at this, I was trying to find somebody else to do the job, and I was really having a hard time trying to find somebody, and in the end, I could only find me, and so I ended up doing it. And to be honest, I've loved it. You've got a lot of time with people. Learning about their issues, their problems, solving some of them, not all of them. You can't solve everything. And so it can be very basic. It can be sorting out the usual dog mess and potholes and things. But then it can be really interesting, like the mass insulation scheme, Kirklees Warm Zone, that I proposed back, the free scheme that I proposed back in 2007. £21 million scheme. So you're dealing very small things, but you're also dealing with big things as well. And I love that variety. I love dealing directly with people and sorting things out. So that was how I got involved in real politics.
Smashing. So it's very refreshing to hear someone speak so enthusiastically about taking part in democracy, actually. And it was interesting that you mentioned different scales, from very local to that council-wide scale. Yeah. Which brings me perfectly on to a question about the job of West Yorkshire Mayor. So, not so much at this stage what you would do in the job, but how do you see the job? How do you see the role? What are its possibilities that are different from being a leader of a council or an MP?
I look at the role as being very much a bridge between local councils and government, and finding ways of getting good national governments and local councils to work together for the betterment of all. Because often the real problem with the relationship between governments and councils is it's a very top-down relationship. It is government telling local councils what to do. I think the mayor stands between those, and the mayor can be a broker for things which happen at that level. So I look at that, I see that's where the power lies, and think there's some really positive things that can be done with the role.
Smashing. So it's 2031. You've been the mayor for 10 years. Mm-hmm. You're considering whether to stand for a third term. In what ways is West Yorkshire different than it would have been if we hadn't had a Green Party mayor?
Well, as a Green politician, I've got a very clear vision of what the future would be. And of course, the future, if I'm a Green politician, is a zero carbon economy. It's one where we're considering the environment in every decision that we actually make. And to reach that point, that would mean that young people particularly would have been skilled in things like green construction, in things like looking after the environment around them. They would see that as a career which they would have for the rest of their lives if they so wished, because it's a huge job to do that. So I would like to ensure that we've got that we're building to high standards. I would like to think that we're also have good transport systems and good transport networks, that public transport that people actually enjoy using and is a preference to the automobile, and that loads of people are cycling, using electric bikes and such like, because it's safe to do so and they love doing it and they love the activity that they get from it. So if I was looking at 10 years hence from then, I would be seeing how far towards that vision I've actually reached, and wanting to take that further, because it's not just simply, to my mind, actually having saving the world. We want to make a better world, and if people have bought into that vision and they go, right, we get it, this was worth doing, and it's also worth saving and worth keeping, I'll probably have a lot of consolidation work to do to ensure that that's something that's embedded within society going forward.
And that would be consolation. That would be after 10 years. Or?
Yeah. So 10 years, I think, going at that pace.
Yeah.
The pace I would like to see would be a zero carbon economy. But I think to embed that, I think you probably need another 10 years, not to just, if you like, dealt with the emergency, because dealing with the emergency will take 10 years, but another 10 years to embed that and make it mainstream.
Yeah. You said something interesting, I think, about skills and green building skills. I think that sixth form colleges and further education is one of the things that comes under the kind of the umbrella of the Mayor. So have you got particular thoughts on how that should change?
Well, one of the things, if we're going to be building to higher standards, passive house standards, zero carbon buildings, then there are going to need to be a lot of skills for people going forward to actually do those things. Architects, builders, the people who are constructing those developments. And so that is going to need the confidence of educational institutions to have the courses to make those skills happen. And also the Green Building Fund that I'm suggesting would actually mean there's a long stream of work which would justify the investment in skills that's required in training, not just from the education sector, but also the private sector as well.
New building or retrofitting houses? Or?
Well, both actually. New buildings to, as I say, passive house standard, which have got very low emissions, 90% reduction in carbon emissions compared with new build today. But yes, retrofit as well. Also looking at existing houses, how we can reduce the emissions from those places. And one of the great benefits of that is we will eliminate fuel poverty. We will eliminate cold homes. There'll be health benefits which will come from that, because people living in cold, drafty homes are more prone to respiratory and heart conditions. So the benefits of doing this go much beyond saving the environment. They're actually better for people's health, wealth, and their comfort as well.
That's very compelling. So that sort of raises the question, why isn't that happening?
Well, this is one of the reasons I'm standing, and I agree. I've been trying for 4 or 5 years now to get Kirklees Council to back the recommendations of an all-party report for all new council buildings to be built to passive house standards. And it has sat on the shelf. And whenever I bring it up, there is a mass silence from the Labour administration. So I've got to break through that. The reason I'm standing is not for myself, because of the things that we need to achieve. And frankly, Labour are in the way.
Thank you. So I have a feeling that you've covered some of this already, but are there things that you think would take 10 years to do rather than 4 years? I think the Mayor's term is 4 years. What were the things that you'd want to set in motion? Sounds like you've said quite a lot of them, that might take 10 years. And how can you put structures in place to sustain them, supposing that officials and elected officials change? So how can you put things in place that last?
Well, I look at cycling as one of the really hard nuts to crack. It takes a brave person, I think, to cycle on roads. And so one of the things we really need to do is, across West Yorkshire, is find really good, safe routes where cyclists are protected. And I don't think that's going to take, I think that will take longer than 4 or 5 years. We need to get started immediately. But if we're going to ensure that people have active travel that they're comfortable with, that's going to take a concerted programme. And so that's not a 4-year job, that's at least a 10-year job. And I think, alluding to your earlier question, it could take longer than that. But it's a matter of having that commitment and having that sustained approach to prioritising other forms of transport beyond the car. And
how are you going to build the consensus to sustain that then?
Well,
especially as you would be a Green Party mayor with 5 local council leaders who are all Labour Party leaders, I think, at the moment.
I think being collaborative and being clear that the funds that I have available, and there will be funds that will be available to the West Yorkshire Mayor, are available to those councils who buy into the projects. So the Green Building Fund, for instance, the idea of that is for councils to have the additional costs to build to higher standards met by the West Yorkshire Mayor. And so that means that we take away the financial reason for them not doing the right thing. I could argue that there's a good reason to do it now. But by actually having that incentive in place, we will put the leverage on there to ease the politics, make things easier. And so I would look to do that with, obviously, green building, but also with transport, sustainable transport as well, and have an active travel fund which was also enabling those councils to do the right thing. So the leverage that the Mayor offers, it's a bridge role, obviously, between national government and local government, but it's also a leverage role to make the right choices.
Great, thank you. That was really interesting discussion about how the job might work. This bridge role then brings us on to my next question, which is the relationship between West Yorkshire and the London government.
Yep.
How do you see that relationship at the moment?
Well, I think recent events. We look at the coronavirus crisis, and that it's not a good example. We have national government basically giving diktat by decree as to what will happen in the places that people live. And local leaders, chief executives, all await whatever the wisdom, and sometimes it's not wisdom, that comes out of central government. And that's acute at the moment with the crisis, but it is common practice in terms of the fact that we are one of the most centralised countries in Europe, where government dictates to the local and regional level. It's highly unusual if you look at other countries around the place. And so I think one of the things I would want to do is ensure that it's not a matter of powers coming up from local councils to the Mayor, but powers coming across from national government. And it's clear that that there is a negotiation to be done between the Mayor and national government as to the powers that are going to come over. And I think using that democratic mandate to make the strong argument for those powers is really important. And I'm a good negotiator and had some success over Kirklees budgets over the years. So I'd like to use those skills with national government.
And do you see that as a kind of campaigning position, potentially with other regional mayors? In how far is that a political project of getting more power from the centre?
Yeah, I think you look at Andy Burnham and what he's doing in Manchester, and I see a lot. He's obviously a different party from me, but I see that as quite collaborative. I see that he is a voice for that region. And so there's obvious synergies there to explore. I've looked at other mayors and what they've done in other places, and we've had a number of independent mayors, places like Bedford, Hartlepool, those sort of places, Bristol, large city. And so it is possible to elect people from outside the norm, and then for them then to demonstrate to local government, look, this is people electing someone who's outside their normal political choices. And so I would represent a voice for the area, and I think that'd be a strong, compelling argument.
Smashing, thank you. So winding up then, West Yorkshire is a fantastic place to live. How can even more great stuff happen in West Yorkshire?
Well, I love the area, I really do, and I look back, I was brought up in Huddersfield, and you think, I kept thinking I'm going to move away and everything, and I've seen a lot of the world of last years, but I love being here, and I think a lot of people do. We have everything here. We have countryside, we have industry, we have heritage, we have architecture, we have an incredible cultural scene in terms of music, art, the things yourself's involved with. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done to continue to promote that, make sure the good stuff continues happening, working with organisations and them seeing the mayoral role as being part of the thing which makes things work. and being a voice for those organisations with councils. Not just a bridge between local government and national government, being a bridge between communities of interest and communities of place with the political institutions around. And so that's the good stuff. You know, that's one of the roles I would really enjoy being as West Yorkshire Mayor.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This has been KLTV's Public Eye with Councillor Cllr Cooper, who is the Green Party candidate for West Yorkshire Mayor.